Hi, everybody. Welcome to Reinvention Works Conversation from the Front Porch. I'm your guest, Hollis Thomases, and today with me, my guest is Rob Graham. Rob, say hi.
Hi, everyone.
Rob is a digital media strategist, an author, a sales trainer, and a general reinventionist extraordinaire. And he's going to share his stories of his career and maybe some personal reinvention along the way.
And daring do.
And this is our first time filming a Reinvention Conversation live together, and we're in New York City. So we're in the Big Apple, and Rob has his book launch tonight, so maybe he'll tell us a little bit about that. But now we're going to get started. Minus the wine, we'll have to indulge tonight at his book signing party. So, Rob, why don't you, in like 5 minutes or less, give a little bit of background about your reinvention journeys?
Well, it's interesting, and you and I have talked about this in the past, but, one of the things about being an entrepreneur in general is you're constantly reinventing yourself. Anybody who works for themselves can never afford to rest on their laurels. It doesn't happen. So the reality for me, like for you and for a lot of other people, is I'm constantly thinking about what the next phase of my life looks like. And it's possible that maybe I just get bored too easily and I'm always looking for something else. But I work in a technological industry, as do you, and it's always changing. And one of the real difficult aspects of my career has always been the fact that I can't rest. I can't just sit back and say, hey, I got this all figured out, because it's constantly changing. And when you work in digital media, as I do, and I know as you have, we used to joke, the problem with this is it changes every afternoon around 4. It's just, so you're constantly learning new things. And along the way, and as a corporate trainer, one of the things that I've been doing for the last few years is really focused on what the next big thing is. I'm always trying to find what the next big technological push is in our industry, so that I can learn it first, so that I can turn around and teach it to other people.
But you started a long time ago as somebody's employee. So
yeah, and
take us back to those early days.
I wasn't particularly good at that. No, at one point in my life, I sat down. I was in my late 20s, and I said, how many jobs have I had in my life? Now, I started working when I was 15 years old, and my first job was washing dishes at a prep school, making $2.10 an hour, which was minimum wage at the time, because that was a long time ago. Over the time, you learn how to have a job. You learn how to work for other people by doing it. And I think at some point, like I said, in my late 20s, I did a tally, and I had 42 different jobs, or something outrageous like that. But a lot of them were temp jobs.
Okay.
So, I was counting those, because every time you got a chance to work with a different business and a different office and different experience, you always learn something. And one of the things I took away from it, even I might look at a job and say, well, I'm glad I don't do that for a career, is that I always walked away with a better understanding of how pieces fit together. So when you look at, kind of our culture in business as a whole, you start to see all these little pieces, but you also start to take away good practices, bad practices, things to avoid. And I've often said, some of the best management experience I've ever received in my life was working for really difficult people who were not good at their jobs. And it makes you a much better manager if you can remember what it feels like to be on the other side of the desk with someone who's just kind of winging it.
So when you reached your late 20s and you had already worked 40-something jobs, at some point, people may question their career, but they're not necessarily willing to go out on their own. And I don't think reinvention is for everybody being an entrepreneur. So what kind of thought process and evaluation process were you going through to make those decisions?
Early on, it was pure accidental luck and a fair amount of stupidity. So just to give you a story, when I graduated from college, my degree was in mass media with a focus on television production.
Okay.
And
here we are now.
Yeah, exactly. And a minor in public speaking. So I went right into the restaurant business as a manager. And my partner was a zoology degree major. So there we were, the two of us, running around, fish out of water. Idiots, probably. Hardest living I think I've ever made in my life. Something I'm very respectful of people who run restaurants. Don't ever want to do it again personally. But once again, you walk away with a lot of understanding about who you are and what you want. But following that, I'll be honest, it was drifting. And there was one point in my career where I looked at the last 6 jobs that I had held, and I couldn't put any of them on my resume because it showed no real course of path. It was just random, odd things that kind of just, and a lot of it was, hey, my dad's starting a business. You want to help us? Like, okay. It was just,
right.
And so it really wasn't until I got into my 30s where I started to focus more on what I wanted to do.
Right.
And getting back to media production, which was my first love, I started my career off in radio. And it was just an opportunity for me to be able to get back into more of creating content that I could use for training purposes, to help for marketing. And so actually, when we look at the world of digital marketing and advertising, I've been in digital advertising for 25 years because I started my career in 1990 creating CD-ROMs
Right.
that had marketing content on them.
Right.
So the digital aspect of it. The thing about that is I love the development process. I love creating content from nothing, starting with nothing more than an idea, which is why writing appeals to me, although some days more than others. And the other side of this was really one of where I could make a difference and help other people do a better job of communicating. That was the thing that really turned me on, first of all, is how do I help a business do a better job of telling their story and moving in that direction. So once I started down that path, I was really very excited. Once again, I was working for myself as well, which meant I had the toughest boss in the world.
Right.
This guy made me work weekends, evenings, miserable.
So the drifting of your 20s and even into your early 30s, now you're older and wiser. Could you still do that? What about the folks who are, our contemporaries and thinking about career change?
I think, look, we have this illusion when we look at the marketplace and careers that there's job security if you stay with the company. And we all know that's not true. It doesn't mean you're going to lose your job, but it means that you're not necessarily going to keep your job. And I have been downsized a few times in my career, as I imagine you have. There have been a few times I've been let go on purpose.
AKA fired?
And to be honest with you, I don't think either time shocked me very much. It was, finally. No, but it's, the challenge that I've run into in my career with career reinvention is that it's always an uncomfortable thing to change.
Yes.
I think Mark Twain had a quote which I've loved. It says, "The only person who likes change is a wet baby." And I think that's really true for most of us as we go through our careers. And we think that, well, if I have the day job, I have the regular paycheck, and I have the security, and maybe in some ways there are some benefits there, but there are also huge benefits working for yourself. The downside is sometimes you don't know when the next check is coming in.
Right.
But you also get to do something that you enjoy doing if you're doing it right. And, for me personally, I've had jobs where I would wake up in the morning with that feeling in the pit of your stomach going, oh, not this again. And I don't really like that.
Right.
And so being able to wake up every morning and have an agenda and be powering your own destiny is fulfilling. And if you can find a way to make some money doing it as well, all the better.
Well, since you know that you are of the nature to change a lot, and you in fact are kind of always preparing yourself for the next phase, I want to talk a little bit about that if we have a chance to come back to it. But so how have you then prepared for constant change? How have you financially, mentally, skill-wise prepared yourself for all those things?
Yeah, I mean, the financial aspects, to be honest, if you're in a situation, a relationship where somebody else can pick up some of the slack while you're, reinventing yourself, it's optimal. Nothing like starving with loved ones to really,
and having your loved ones starve on your behalf.
Yeah, change your perspective on the world and what you might want to be doing with it. No, it's the challenge I think we run into. The idea of self-employment to a lot of people sounds like it's a blessed thing. Like it's, oh, I can't wait. You're so lucky you get to work for yourself. And part of my thought is, well, I'm lucky in a lot of ways that I get to follow my own dreams, but it's a much harder way to make a living in a lot of ways. Right. So there's the trade-off there. I remember getting a day job years ago when I started working in the digital agency side of things, and they didn't expect me to work nights and weekends, and they paid me for days off.
Right.
I never had that. That was so cool.
But the glory days.
Oh, and the other side, and I think this is an important thing as well. One of the things I like about working a day job, we'll call it, is I like being able to work with the other people. I like having people that can bounce ideas off of, and that sense that we're all heading in the same direction and we're working on the same project. Sometimes when you're working by yourself, it becomes a focus group of one.
Right.
And if you have other people that you hire that you can work with, you can replicate that. But I find one of the challenges that I face working for myself is every so often I need a little bit of a sounding board.
Right.
Because you start to believe everything that comes through your mind as being, hey, that's what a brilliant idea. You're doing this all the time, and you need somebody to come and go, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life.
That's why we're doing
would you do that? Right? Exactly. But getting back to your original question on change, I think partly, personally, I think I'm wired to not fear change, which makes it a lot easier. Once again, I've also not been in, indoctrinated so deeply to say, well, you have to have the day job in order to have the security, because I've not had security on both fronts. I would encourage anybody who says, well, I really want to go through this reinvention thing to not just have themselves, a going away party at their day job if they still have it, and say, and boss, by the way, here's another thing I want to share with you about, no, don't do it. A lot of what we do is a labor of love anyway. And what you and I are both doing, we do it sometimes because there are opportunities to help other people and to share what we've learned with other people. Sometimes the cash flow is one of those things that you take into question, and it's always nice to, when you find a way to make a living and do what you want. But there's nothing that you can't go out there and say, I'm going to keep my day job, but I'm also going to start working nights and weekends on what I really want to do.
Got it.
And when you start to segue and say, okay, but it's a commitment. It's a commitment of time. It's a commitment of effort. And if your lifestyle is one of, wow, that was a really hard day at work, I think I'll just watch TV tonight, you're probably not getting off the launch pad.
Right.
And by the way, that's a great way to test your level of commitment.
That's a great point.
And I've often said, and I've worked with a lot of students that said, check the fire in your belly. Because if the fire in your belly isn't there, you're probably going to have a hard time. And let me just segue, if I can, just share a quick story.
Sure.
I had a downstairs neighbor building I was living in several years ago who said, hey, you're an entrepreneur. You work for yourself. Could you talk to me about this opportunity I've run into? And I said, be happy to. Well, she had gone off to one of these seminars where, someone pitches you on kind of a franchise type thing. And this is an opportunity to own vending machines.
Okay.
And so, of course, the vending machines are just generating money all the time, so you empty, basically they've made it sound like you just buckets of coins and you're carrying them around, and, you go to the bank 4 times a day. And so we're going through this, she's like, well, what do you think? And I said, well, and she was a mail carrier at the time and didn't really love being a mail carrier, I guess. And I can understand that'd be a tough job as well. So I said, well, let me ask you a question. What is it about the vending machine business that you love most? And she's like, well, I've never really been in the business. I said, well, assuming that you get in the business, what is the part of it that you would enjoy the most? Is it helping the people out? Is it providing them with tasty and nutritious snacks? Is it fixing vending machines all the time because they're broken?
Right.
Is it making?
Is it someone trying to bang the change and steal from your machine?
And she goes, well, I guess I just really want to make a lot of money. I said, okay, but where is your passion for the business? Because this is something that's going to be driving you. You're going to think about this 24/7. And if it's only because you want to make money, there are easier ways to make money.
Right.
And if this is not something you absolutely love, I wouldn't do it. And so I don't think she went into the vending machine business. And
it would be interesting to know if she reinvented from mail carrier, though. I would like to track that woman down and interview her. If you are watching this now and you were a mail carrier and now you do something totally different, let me know.
Like anybody else, I think it's a great way to find that transition. But a lot of people, and you and I have talked about this. You look at the statistics of the number of people who are dissatisfied with there's kind of the 50% of people who are dissatisfied with their job, and like the 25% who absolutely hate their jobs.
Right.
And it's from a philosophical standpoint, waking up every day and spending your time doing something you absolutely hate doing, that's not a real good place to be.
Right.
That said, we all feel the need to eat on a regular basis. I know I seem to be addicted to food. And so the challenge, of course, is how do you fit both of the things in? So I think being able to find your passion outside of whatever's making you money initially and figure it out. And, I don't know about you, Hollis, but I don't think I figured out how to do a lot of the stuff I learned to do better the first time.
Right.
I wasted a lot of money doing bad marketing, developing things nobody wanted. And,
well, this is a nice softball to me back. Number one, tell me about your biggest failure at a reinvention attempt. And then I want to ask you about the fear thing. You're wired not to be fearless, but let's talk about the failure thing.
Well, failure is such an interesting thing. I'm a huge fan of failure, and I mean that very seriously. I think failure is the best teacher we will ever have. And nobody likes being knocked on their butt, but it certainly gives you a different change of perspective, and it allows you to kind of figure out, okay, if I don't want this to happen again, what do I do? Mm-hmm. And so I'm a real big fan of going out and doing things and taking risks. Not, don't bet the family farm on it every time, but go out and do things that are risky and that may challenge you, because I think that's where growth is. So my biggest fear was failure, I should say, was I developed an entire curriculum for teaching people how to do programming. It was a programming language that I was proficient at. So I spent a lot of time. I had other clients and things I needed to be doing that was making the money, but this was a real dream Because as I saw it, I was going to put these courses online. People would subscribe to them, be able to get in there and learn what it was they needed to learn. Well,
So somewhere along the way, graduating from being a broadcast and journalist major and opening a restaurant or running a restaurant, you also learned programming. He skips over these details.
yeah, I learned. Well, actually, and I was also teaching college at the time. So
Okay, so
yeah.
let's move on back to the.
Well, but the thing is I enjoy the teaching process. I've been a professional trainer now for the last decade, and it's something that I really enjoy doing. And so this is really kind of a step into that realm. And so I don't know how many hours I spent. I spent so many hours. I put so much content together, really good stuff, really good, clear, showing people how to learn this program from start to finish. Started marketing it, spent thousands of dollars on Google AdWords, and had one student.
Oh,
That was it.
that's painful.
So had one student. And you kind of say, okay, here's the challenge. Do you let it knock all the wind out of your sails? Do you just sit down and say, I'm a failure-year-old, never amount to anything? Or do you say, what did I learn? Okay, that wasn't how I wanted it to go, but what went wrong? Why didn't it go the way I wanted it to go? What can I do next time?
Right.
And I'll share this with you and with anyone viewing this. Two key things I've learned for success in my career and in anything that you do. I think it's very simple. The two things you have to have, getting back to the idea of the fire in the belly, is you have to have a persistent vision of your goals and your desire. You need to believe in what you're doing. If you don't believe in what you're doing, it's going to be very hard for you to get other people to believe in it. Two, right. You're always looking for that escape clause of, well, that didn't work, let me go get a job. Okay, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with getting a job, by the way, but I'm saying if you are interested in following your dreams, you have to believe it. You have to almost be rabidly crazy about, this is going to work, I want this.
Right.
And the other thing is you have to be persistent with your actions. Because as soon as you give up, you're done. And if you just say, okay, that hurt, get back up. Okay, that hurt, get back up. One of my favorite expressions is a Japanese saying that translates to fall down 6 times, get up 7.
I love that.
And I think there's a lot to be said for that. And I know in my life that a lot of times the greatest successes happen after you've been knocked down a bunch of times and you keep getting up. But here's another thing to take into consideration. Most people won't. Right. Most people won't keep getting up. So you actually outlive the competition just by being more stubborn right. than they are. And as a result, you're going to find the success. Now, is it everything you do going to be successful? No.
Right.
But keep getting up. Keep doing it. Keep finding another way to do it. Keep figuring out. Don't flip-flop from career to career necessarily. And I would just say try to stay away from these ideas of get rich quick.
Right.
And we all have been enticed by that. Well, if I do this, I'll make $1 zillion. No, you won't.
Right.
You're going to work really hard, but what's the old expression? The only place that success comes before work is in the dictionary.
Right. So going back to you're wired for fearlessness. What about?
Oh no! I did not say that at all.
Wait, let's rewind the tape.
I suffer fear every single day. I don't let fear control me. That's the difference. No, I've got this fear thing nailed. I'm good at it.
So how do you not let it control you? What are some pieces of salient advice you could give?
A lot of what I love. There's a great quote. I think it was Eleanor Roosevelt that said, "Do something that terrifies you every day or scares you every day." And I think it's good. Fear is emotional growing pains, and I think if you want to become a better person or a stronger person, you have to go through things. And I think if you look at anyone who is successful, what you're really looking at is someone who has dealt with a lot more fear, perhaps, than you have.
Right.
And a lot of times it comes back to the whole idea of what's the worst thing that can happen. There are a couple of different approaches when we approach any new thing. And yes, there's a freshness and there's this, kind of idealized, if I do this, I'll, be rich and famous. You might start down that path, but you're going to find it's never that path where it's a straight line and there are rainbows and unicorns in the distance.
I don't know that path.
Yeah, that's the one we look. Oh, this will be great. While
you're
writing your business plan with a beer in your hand, kind of like this will be great. But it turns out it was some sort of swamp where there's boulders and big suck holes, and you have to fight your way through. That's more the reality of
right.
any project. I think expecting that is a huge part of what makes you more successful. If you expect that straight line and nothing's going to get in your way, you're probably going to be horribly disappointed. But if you expect that it's going to be a hard slog, And then when it happens, you go, oh, there it is. I've been waiting for you to get in my way.
Right.
You know,
Right.
this project was going too smoothly now, and but take it as a positive sign, not a setback. Every challenge that we are handed in any type of business or project is an opportunity for us to learn something and get past it, as opposed to just constantly going, oh, that hurt. You know, I want to go back.
Right.
And so, you know, when I deal with my fear, I constantly think about, first of all, what I'm trying to accomplish, what my goal is, why I still want that. I think about what's the worst thing that can happen. And sometimes the worst thing that can happen is not the worst thing that will ever happen to you. I mean, a lot of times, you know, and I guess it depends on who you are. A lot of people are just terrified that there's going to be somebody in their life going, told you couldn't do it.
Right.
You know, and that idea that you're going to let somebody else down because you let yourself down is a huge driving force. Your parents are there going, you know, we wanted to save you from this horrible mortification and embarrassment because we love you, but, you know, that doesn't help you grow.
Right.
Sometimes just go out there and do something that's going to scare the hell out of you.
Right.
And see where it takes you.
And I know that there's a lot of people who are looking to reinvent who have the fear of managing all their obligations, their familial obligations and their life obligations and everything else.
Absolutely.
And I think that's a pretty scary holdback.
It's a pretty scary holdback, but I mean, I think being very frank, I think sometimes we use that as the excuse as to why we don't do these
Like
things.
a crutch, yeah.
Well, yeah, you know, but I got a family to take care of.
Right.
Okay, and that may be the case, but who's to say you can't do both? Now, I'll be honest with you, it's hard to be like the perfect family man and hold down the day job and invent yourself at night and create your future business.
Right.
But, you know, you also look at the statistics of the number of hours the average person watches television. You figure you take that out, you got plenty of time to get stuff done, you know.
Exactly.
So it's a matter of just, you know, weighing your options and choosing the things you want. Yeah, you have to have the dream, though.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. How do you help yourself define your next you? Besides I'm studying the trends.
Well, trends are important in a lot of ways, especially when I'm working with training. I think, you know, a lot of times we have to be very cognizant about what it is that makes us happy. And this may sound like a really silly thing to say, but I spent a lot of time a few years ago kind of going through this process of who do I want to be again when I grow up,
right?
And I used to get up in the morning and take a 5-mile walk where I was living. It was just through the woods. It was just gorgeous, and it was 90 minutes I gave myself every morning for me. Because so often we just don't get the time to exercise. We don't get the time to stay healthy because we're just, you know, it's another obligation. You know, it's kind of the idea of pay yourself first, and then pay yourself with health, and also just to let the stuff run through your head. And so it was during one of these moments I had just a great epiphany. If you ask yourself, what is your purpose? You know, once again, you kind of that self-philosophy, you know, why am I here? What is my purpose? And I said, you know, what, for me, what do I want my life to mean? I want to empower other people. Okay, that's because that makes me happy.
Right.
And so a lot of times just find the thing that makes you happy.
Right.
And sometimes it's helping other people, and sometimes it's saving up so you can buy a yacht, or, you know, whatever it is but something's going to make you happy.
Right.
And I think it's probably not acquiring a material gain. Money is important, but I don't think most of us say, you know what's going to really make me happy? $5 million in the bank. Now, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm saying that may not be what's going to make you happy. What's going to make you happy is along the way, you're going to meet some wonderful people. You're going to find ways that you make a difference in the world. You're going to find ways that you help other people. You're going to find that you learn wonderful things about yourself. You know, whatever it is, figure out what those things are so that you can then turn, you know, and kind of head in that direction. And I often think, you know, money is obviously such a huge, important part of everything we do, but I don't think money should be the only thing you're thinking about. And if, like, you know, I said, if you're only doing it for the money, you're probably doing it for all the wrong reasons. You know, I doubt anyone ever said to Jim Henson when he was a young man, you know, Jim, puppets, that's where the future is. That's where your money is, you know. And I love the fact that, you know, he followed his dreams and his passion and found a way to entertain people and made a good living in the process.
Exactly. So, you know, you talked about how you gain comfort and gratification from helping people. That's one of the things that motivated you. What, if anything, and it can be in the form of persons or tools, helped you in your reinvention process, even in terms of finding the you? I mean, you've done a lot of introspection, but have you also found assistance in other forms, and what are they?
You know, I remember when I was young, someone said something to the effect of, well, the most important things in our lives are other people, our relationships with our family and our friends. And I remember thinking at the time, that's nonsense. Making lots of money, that's what we want to do. Well, guess what? Turns out that your friends and your family are the most important things. And there's a certain level of ego we all carry around with us. And I think also, in my industry, I like to be an authority on certain things. I like to be the person that people look up to and say, hey, you're the expert, you can teach us what we need. It's good for my head. But the other side is you surround yourself with some incredibly just gifted and talented and hardworking people. And there's a lot to be said for the network that we create with one another.
Right.
I think it's probably safe to say that most of my opportunities, the clients that I bring in are because a friend said, hey, I talked to a client today, they need you to come in and help them out.
Right.
And, that's good for your ego as well, but it also means that you arrived at a point where, the people that you have networked with are thinking you're the solution to a problem that, that this person is having. It's a wonderful place to be.
So when you've gone through the thinking about the next reinvention before, how did you utilize these people?
A lot of times, total honesty, is you reach out the door and you say, I need help. So a quick story about me. So I had a business, a training business that was purchased by a competitor in 2007, the end of 2007. And part of the stipulation of the sale was I worked for the company, which I had no problem with. It was a great opportunity. At the end of 2008, after a year of being on the road and training, the market was getting very soft. And we had one of those meetings, and it wasn't a shock to me because I had seen the economy and what was going on. I'm like, we can't afford to keep you on.
Right.
So in January of 2009, I was sitting at home in my office, nothing in the pipeline, no job. Oh, by the way, the beautiful thing about self-employment is you don't collect unemployment when you leave your job. So you're in scramble mode. And it was a horribly uncomfortable place to be because you go from having an income to none. And, you're either tapping into your savings if you have them, or you're, leveraging your house, or you're selling your car or your children on eBay, whatever it is that's going to bring the money in. And, a big part of that is, okay, I could be prideful and say, well, I can do this myself, or you can reach out and say, hey, does anyone know of opportunities?
Right.
Which I did. And by the time we got 6 months into the year, I was teaching at 3 universities.
Awesome.
Because it was going to pay the bills.
Right.
And so, it was a good place for me to go to. It was certainly a lot better than, bagging groceries at the local supermarket, which I would have happily done had I gone down that path.
Right.
But, to your question, it's really about going out there and identifying the people that you can help as much as can help you. But I want to stress that find the people you can help first, and not just be the person who's always taking and not giving. And when you are able to provide to other people, let's say when you're in better position to do so, then you're in a position when you need their help to be able to say, I need your help, and have them go, yeah, absolutely, what can I do for you?
Right. I've heard that from several people now that I've interviewed on Reinvention about the importance of helping others. It sounds so, I don't know, cliche and esoteric, but
it's important. Harvey McKay wrote a book about it a couple of years ago called Dig Your Well Before You're Thirsty, and talking about how in all of our careers we're going to just have something that's going to knock us down.
Right.
And at that point, if you go out and say, I need money, my business deal fell through, I need $15,000 to make it through the next payroll, can you help me? If you don't have your network set up, you're going to have a hard time getting there.
Right. So with a few 1 minute left or so, can you suggest 2 or 3 action items that anybody listening today could undertake that you would recommend if they are just starting to think about reinventing their career?
Absolutely. One of the things that I do periodically is I guess I really can't call it a business plan, but I almost write a business plan for myself. And you are here, you want to be here. What does that look like? So how are you going to get from where you are today in your life today and your financial needs today to where you want to be? What does that look like? And if you can work it out on paper, then it's a lot easier to actually put into action.
Right.
And I love the idea of a legal pad and a sharpened pencil as being where you start being the good idea. I know it sounds old school.
Wait, that's how I started this whole idea.
Yeah, leave the PDAs and the iPad away, but but if you can't get the idea to gel on paper, it's just as well you didn't try to do it in real life. And so by working through thinking, okay, well, how do I make this happen? How much money do I need to support myself? How do I, create it like you would create a business plan
And
for
one
anything
more.
else.
And one more. And then we wrap up.
And one more, okay. Oh. And the other thing is, once again, make sure that you're doing whatever you want to do for the right reasons.
Right.
And the right reasons are not because your parents told you to, not because your spouse expects it of you, not because the kids necessarily need to have braces and new shoes and go to college, although those are all reasonable things. But deep down, what is it that's going to do to make you better, a better person, make you happier, and make you more effective and successful?
Excellent. Well, Rob, thanks for joining me.
Absolutely welcome.
And
My
thanks
pleasure.
to you all for logging in again and watching this video. And we'll be back with another episode next week. That will be live on Wednesday evening, 8:30 p.m. Thanks so much.
Cheers.
Take care. Bye.